So, Mr. Keir Dullea. Thank you very much for this wonderful experience.
Thanks, Stanley.
Thanks, Stanley, of course. I hope you will allow me if I start with a question from the beginning. There's an interesting story about how you actually landed a part in this movie, and I wonder if you could share it with us.
Well, I was making a film in London, Laurence Olivier, called Bunny Lake is Missing, and directed by Otto Preminger. Not a pleasant experience. However, one evening I went home and my wife said, call your agent. So I called him in Los Angeles, and he said, are you sitting down? And I said, no, why? And he said, you better sit down. I said, why? He said, you've just been offered the lead in Stanley Kubrick's next film. Well, I just about fell on the floor. I had no idea that I was being considered. I had never been contacted. I never met Stanley. I didn't audition. It was out of the blue. Now, obviously, I found out later that he had screened some of my films up till then, including outtakes from Bunny Lake. You know, I just wanted to interject something. It always hits me, and a lot of people may or may not know this, but the extraordinary special effects in this film, there is not one effect that was computer generated. Nothing. Everything you saw in this film was done physically, one way or the other. Which is remarkable, if you think about it.
So, back then in the late 60s, on that soundstage in London, were you aware that you were creating such an important film, such a landmark, such a unique film?
Well, I was a Stanley Kubrick fan ever since I saw Paths of Glory, and then I'd seen, Dr. Strangelove and Lolita and The Killing with Sterling Hayden, and I knew that I was going to be working with a genius, and so I knew it was going to get a lot of attention when it would come out. It was the biggest budget science fiction. Nothing had ever come close to the kind of money involved in producing it. But as far as knowing that it would become this iconic film, how do you know a thing like that? As I said to a few people this evening, could the actors who were in Citizen Kane know they'd be studied in film school 75 years later? No, of course not.
But you said that you knew you were working with a genius. Now, I know this is a question that everybody's asking you, but still I must ask. How is it like working with Stanley Kubrick?
Well, the shortest answer is it doesn't get better. Coming from the ogre that Otto Preminger was. Anybody here see Stalag 17? William Holden and other wonderful actors? Well, you may remember that the German commandant of the prisoner of war camp was played by Otto Preminger. And that was Otto on a nice day. So to arrive with this extraordinarily calm, quiet, thoughtful man that Stanley was, and I arrived, I was in awe of working with him, and his main problem of getting me ready for this was for me to get over that feeling, which he did, quite quickly, thank God, because and it was just, it was working with someone, like Leonardo da Vinci, except in film.
But still, it must have been a demanding experience. I'm referring especially, for example, to the scene when you are trying to enter the spaceship through that emergency hatch, and then you falling down or being pushed inside.
Well, how that was done was, thank God, it was only in one take. That set was built the door of the emergency hatch was at the ceiling, a couple of stories high. I mean, the sets were very big, very tall. And there was a platform parallel to the set, sideways, out of sight of the camera. And my job would be to go through there and free fall toward the camera, which was on the floor, to arrive with several inches from the lens. How did they do that? They had a circus roustabout who had measured the drop. They had lengths of rope which doubled that length. He was on the platform next to me, this parallel platform, with big gloves. He had tied the rope with huge knots, which was the length of the drop, and then he doubled it. So I was next to him, and on action, I dove headfirst toward the camera, falling free fall, and of course he's up there with the rope running through his glove fingers very rapidly. As soon as the first knot reached his gloves, he jumped off that platform. It was a block and tackle effect. I went whipping back up to the ceiling. As soon as his feet hit the floor, he let go again and waited for the second knot. That's how it was. No, it was not. No computer.
I guess that was the only shot in the film that was done in one take.
Yes,
yeah.
I think so.
Was there a shot you had to do 100 times?
No, people. Apparently, he was known for doing a lot of takes, and that may have increased through the years. I don't remember. You always have lots of takes in film. I don't remember having more than 4 or 5 takes. But the thing about this film was it was so complicated. The lighting was so complicated, and some of these vast sets. Not too often, but sometimes there would be one setup. One setup means literally one position with the camera films something. That's called a setup. There would be one setup in a workday. Not often, but that would happen. And that would take all day to film. But the thing about working with Stanley, he was so calm. He never raised his voice. You could suggest anything. Didn't mean he'd buy it. And it was a real. I might describe one other effect in the scene where Gary Lockwood or Frank Poole is eating at the table, waiting to watch the interview we've done with the BBC. I enter from the hub and come down a ladder, and he's in the same shot. So this is all one shot. So I'm at the bottom of the wheel. He's up there. And I seemingly
go around, yeah.
And defy gravity. How do I do that? Gary Lockwood has a harness. He's upside down eating. They pasted the food to this hook. And so what happens is, after I get the hot food, I just stay in place and walk as they revolve him down to me. So that's how that was done.
You must have seen this film dozens of times. How do you feel when you watch it again today? What is your first reaction to the film? The strongest reaction?
I gotta tell you, I never get tired of the Dawn of Man sequence. Now, of course, that hadn't been filmed. That was the last thing to be filmed in the shooting schedule. And it has several of my favorite moments in the film. And I never get tired of seeing them. When the lead ape discovers the first tool or the first weapon, and it's done so subtly. He's fooling around with some bones, and then after having touched the monolith, of course, that's the teaching machine, as we kind of sense, and suddenly, almost in mid-motion, his head, like a dog who's suddenly curious about something, that a dog will suddenly go, right? And that's when he goes. It's an extraordinary movement. And then gradually, he realizes that he's discovered something. That's one of my favorite moments. And the other is one of the greatest jump cuts in history, when the lead ape in triumph throws his bone and in slow motion it goes up into the air and it morphs into what I had always thought until just a few years ago, I discovered it was something else, is a space vehicle. That is a nuclear weapon that is in orbit around the Earth. Arthur C. Clarke posits that the USSR and the United States would be in a standoff, and each of those nations would have nuclear weapons in orbit around the Earth. So, what a jump cut. The first weapon, the first tool of any sort, morphing into the most recent weapon, a nuclear weapon. Brilliant.
Brilliant. In the film you play an astronaut who doesn't really know what his mission is until the end. And I'm curious, how much did Stanley explain on set to you as an actor? I'm particularly curious about the ending. Did he explain the ending to you, or did he just tell you, you're going to be here eating, lying in bed?
Yeah, I don't the thing about Stanley's, most of his films, he didn't end them conveniently by tying the ending up in a very convenient bow. I mean, this film can be interpreted in so many different ways. I think Stanley with us, we kind of, we're just doing our parts on a more mundane level. Things happen to us and we reacted, well, particularly with Hal. But I don't remember him giving us a clue as to what the end, because I'm asked all the time, what does the ending mean? And the end, what's so wonderful, it is, it's the huge question mark. I mean, is it sort of an evolutionary tale that the ape man and then modern man, and of course, I thought it was a genius. It was genius on Stanley's part not to show the aliens. You know, science fiction films had always had bug-eyed monsters. No bug-eyed monsters there, only the effect, and it was much more startling. And the ending, people say, what is that strange room? Well, my own interpretation of the strange room is that the aliens are so many millions of years in advance of us that they have the ability to go into a human mind like a tape recorder and extract certain information. And so in the transformation, which probably, and I think it's only symbolic, that the transformation of my character into the fetus in the end probably happened in an instant, but it was symbolically expressed filmically by slowing all that down. In that room, in the original script, it was just a room in a Hilton hotel somewhere. And if you look too close, and it had kind of the Bible that they always have in the hotel room, but if you got too close to any print, it was blurred. That was the way the script described it, but that was all changed by the time we shot it. And my interpretation is that my character may have walked through the Louvre Museum in Paris one day, and in trying to build a comfortable atmosphere, the way we do in a zoo for an animal, in an artificial cave for the polar bear, they went in my mind and saw, habitat. My walking through the Louvre.
The attachment to the screens and the dialogue being more formalities and cliches often, and not much depth of emotion often, except for certain times. I wonder if you could comment if you've heard that as accurate, and if you can speak to that a little bit.
Well, I think to some extent you're right. I think the two astronauts who are awake, we picked them up after they'd been probably in space for months. They talked out everything they had to, there wasn't a lot to talk about. That day that we picked them up, it was just another day of 100, maybe 100 days or more. And they're just going through their usual routine. And it's completely lacking of any drama. And also I think we had fictional biographies of the characters, and Gary Lockwood and my characters had double doctorates. They were science doctorates of some sort. I don't remember what they were now. And also we talked about how these the people that would be chosen as astronauts would have a psychological profile such that we would understand that it would take a lot to get them excited. That they had very, very calm personalities, and I the only time I really showed anything like emotion was when Hal won't let me back in, and or maybe even the most interesting scene for me was when I'm taking Hal apart, and when he sings Daisy Daisy. And the reason it reminded me, I don't know how many of you know both a movie and it's also been it was a play on Broadway called Mice and Men by Stanley, and it was any of you here know Mice and Men? You remember the two men? There was the retarded man and his buddy, and they want to string the retarded man up because he inadvertently causes the death of a young girl. He doesn't know his own strength, and it's out west, and they're going to hang him. And so his buddy, who loves him, puts him out of his misery by going over a story that they always go over, how about they're going to buy a farm together. And meanwhile, while he's telling the story for the 100th time to his buddy, he reaches behind him and shoots him in the back of the head. Well, that sort of emotionally was what I was doing with Hal, so to speak.
There's a question.
Yeah, Stanley was a chess master, he was a voracious reader, he had an intellect that was considered gargantuan by pretty much everyone he met. I'm just wondering if you ever caught a moment where Stanley was stupid. where the genius slipped away.
Never. No, never. But he was very human. He wasn't. I remember somebody came on with some new gadget. It was a camera, 35mm camera, and I can't remember what it was, but it was something new on the market. He stopped everything right at the beginning. No more. We didn't film for half an hour. He stopped working and looked at this camera. I mean, he had great curiosity, and it was great interest. And you're right. He was a master chess player. In fact, he was a hustler when he was a young man, and used to hustle chess in Washington Square Park in Greenwich Village in New York. He was an extraordinary. He used to, in Dr. Strangelove, the actor George C. Scott, and he would play chess all the time, and he was a multifaceted man, so intelligent.
There was a question.
How did you feel watching yourself aged in that movie? And how do you feel about it now?
How did I feel? Can you repeat that?
How did you feel about seeing yourself aged in that movie? And how do you feel about it now? There's a remarkable likeness there.
I wish I looked as young there. But I felt a little better. I still feel a little better as old as I am now. And seeing, I think I come across, I come across better than the old man on the bed. And maybe even a little maybe. I just turned 80, so I can appreciate what it might feel. No, the funny thing is, after I've seen the film, as you imagine, quite a few times, and this is more so with this film than other films that I've done, is that as the years go by, it's really like you're looking at another person entirely. It's really hard to realize that's me. You know?
Thank you very much. This was a beautiful answer.